Group, Marshall Group and city owners.
That online now.
Oh, there is it? Okay.
Yeah, Marshall, yeah, it's a late.
Okay, and we've got Dean Marshall online. Not the Victoria Neighbourhood Association at this stage. You got a different submission up?
What was that, sir?
It's the wrong submission.
Yeah.
There's Dean. Hello, Dean.
Hello, how are you? Good morning to the Mayor and councillors. I'm going to speak from the heart because I certainly can't do as well as that last presentation. My gosh. Look, I'm just to clear who I'm speaking on behalf of. It's KPI Rothschild Group, which we built some of the first 3 buildings in the city after the earthquakes in the CBD. Marshall Group, which is a company that I have, which is again doing some of the projects like 159 High Hereford Street at the moment. You know, that one of the Dirty 30 that Jamie so aptly named, which we did one of the others, and we're now doing that one. We've also City Owners Rebuild Entity, which represents over 200 inner city property owners, which was formed after the earthquake. And, you know, if any of you remember, it got national publicity to get the city rebuilt. So, you know, look, I'm very passionate about Christchurch. I'm very passionate about the South Island. I want to see us actually achieve the promise that we were meant to have originally and still can have. But I think it's a very delicate balance between central government, local government, and the business and property owners. So the issue around, you know, which I want to speak to mainly today about is the vacant land issue in the city. Now, look, I appreciate we all want to see these buildings, you know, up on the sites. You know, but there is a reality to this that there's all sorts of circumstances around a lot of the owners as to why they haven't done anything, and I think that it is a very complicated one. You know, some of those issues is we've got lack of building materials, we've got lack of cheap money, and it's getting more expensive. I mean, you know, to give you an idea, we're having rates, you know, thrown at us now from banks, you know, ranging from 3.5 to 4.5, and they're going to be going up. In Australia, which I've got commercial property there, I pay 2%, and I think it'll probably go up another, you know, for shade, but you know, just in the last few days. But the reality is, money's a lot cheaper in Australia. So we've got problems with money not being cheap, and that's been a problem all my life in New Zealand and being in the property business in New Zealand. We have this problem where we're always paying more for money, which means that goes through to, you know, we then have issues with the rents are lower than Australia or other parts of the world. So we've got cheaper rents, we've got more expensive interest rates. The most expensive bit of our OPEX budget now for, you know, when we're doing our outgoings for tenants, the most expensive item now is not insurance, it's rates. Now, we have, and I've spoken to Dawn about this, and shown us some valuations which we have in Australia, properties, and here. I mean, one property we have here, which I pay $56,000 a year on, a block of shops. I've got a property in Australia which, well, it's probably worth now $4 million more than the one here. I pay $17,000 a year in Brisbane. Now, you know, we seem to have a situation in my lifetime, and I mean, I'm a lot older than most of the people that are listening to me. I don't know how that happened, but the problem is that we seem to have, the council in my lifetime has got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm not talking about the councillors, I'm talking about the council staff. It's just got so much bigger than it ever used to be. And it appears that we are having a lot of nice things, you know, like we might get some art pieces, you know, we'll have all these kind of nice things, but we're not sticking to basic services. And you'll see them if you read my submission. Even where I live, we don't have basic services. We have to keep hounding the council to get basic services, and the response isn't always positive. And so, I mean, I would like to see a situation where the council consider that it's not all beer and skittles out there. We have situations also where we have tenants who some can't afford to pay the rent, particularly in the last 2 years, and we've become debt collectors for the government, central government, which were overtaxed in New Zealand by central government. We then subsequently have, we collect the GST, and then we're collecting rates. So by the time we actually collect the rates for the council, there's no more money for us as landlords in some situations. Some of the sectors have been hit very hard in the CBD, and I think there is a total disconnect. It reminds me of, prior to the French Revolution, you had the royalty sitting at, the French royalty sitting in their palace, and this, it's a bit like that with the council. There's a total disconnect with what's happening at the coalface and what's happening on the ground. The reality is that rents are not high enough to build on some of these sites right now. Hence, we've gone and bought 159 Hereford Street to try to keep things moving in the city. Your build costs now are up about 30%. You're talking maybe $6,000 to $7,000 a square metre to build. You start doing those numbers. Say, on some sites we can go 7 stories, and I see that hotel they're talking about building now on Manchester Street is going to be 12 stories. But you start doing the numbers on that, and the actual build cost and the return you're going to get. Well, maybe it'll work with a hotel. I don't know, because I don't know the numbers in a hotel. But if you do it around office, it doesn't work. Our build costs have just shot through the roof, and we've got lack of everything. So it's all very nice saying let's put up the right rates to get these sites sorted. What it's going to force people to do is build nasty, cheap buildings on these sites, which could end up staying there for years. We've already lost too much heritage, so we already stand the risk of becoming a Canberra or Coventry, like in England after the war, where it became a modern city, but it was ugly and nobody wants to go to. I mean, who goes to Canberra for their holidays? You don't. And you don't go to Coventry either. So I mean, we stand the risk with all the heritage we've lost, and including the Ning building, which we shouldn't have lost. It didn't need to come down, and I didn't say enough about it. I see the facade still there the other day. We should save this facade and try to do something in behind it. We've lost too much heritage. The risk we stand in the city is we lose any more, we're going to have a very boring city and nobody's going to want to come and visit us. When my grandparents immigrated here, this city was the most English city in this side of the world. Now, our heritage, I know that I've had Maori relatives and that's really important, but equally our European history is equally as important here, and we seem to be forgetting that. And if we do forget it, we will lose tourists long term. Nobody will want to come down here to see this most English city that's no longer an English city. Anyway, so that really says as much as I probably need to say at the moment.
Thank you, Dean. Has anyone got any questions for Dean?
Don't put up rates on vacant land is all I can say.
Yeah,
I might shoot through the Aussie and live.
We've got a sort of balancing act. We've got staff that have been working really collaboratively with the business owners, that own the sites, and there are some demonstrated benefits to the presentation of the central city as a result of that engagement. And I think there's a degree of frustration about those that won't play ball. So I think that's where the desire came from. So, but we're listening to you. And I'd like to ask Sarah.
Thanks so much for that. Just a quick question. The additional funding that might come, the revenue that might come in from the additional rate was likely to be spent on sort of improvements in the central city, those kind of things. So those things would be sort of budgeted for currently. If we didn't go ahead with it, would you like us to cut the spending that we were planning on doing to keep the rates lower?
I think you need to keep the rates lower. I mean, we are paying the most outrageous rates in the city now, and you're going to basically, I mean, a lot of people don't have to live here. We live here because our families have been here and are here. But it can get to a point where we are overtaxed and overrated. And we've seen in history what happens when that happens. I mean, the Boston Tea Party, when the Americans, had enough of the English taxes, you can push people too far.
There was no taxation without representation, I think.
That's right. And well, that's another story we had previously, Leanne. I mean, if I had my way, the council would become our provincial government again. That's what we should really have.
Well, I think we need
that's another whole
to be honest, but yeah, given the previous submission, if you actually think of the provincial approach to some of these regional assets, it does actually make sense. But no, and some other issues that are front of mind at the moment.
There's a lot of property which I've noticed, which over the years, which are council assets, which they could actually. They don't use, and the grass grows, and we have to ring the council, and somebody goes and eventually cuts it down, and
so
it gets to waste time.
Dean, sorry,
assets
sorry, a couple of councillors have said that they weren't quite sure on your answer to the question, though. So the money that the additional revenue that was due to come in through the increased vacant sites rate is due to be spent on sort of additional improvements in the central city, and
What improvements were you talking about?
They haven't been specified yet, but
I'll give you an
example.
It's going to be tagged. But the example is the site on the corner of Cathedral Square, Colombo Street and Hereford Street. So that site had a brilliant development plan for it. A tourism company, of course. The COVID hit, and after a while, the plans had to come off the table. They sold the site. The property owner who's purchased it agreed to work collaboratively with the council to make it a site that was actually capable of supporting activation in the community, a nice environment, rather than just leaving another car park space. And that's the sort of thing that we're trying to negotiate site by site. But, staff can only go so far down that track, and it does require willingness on both sides.
Yeah. So the point is that the extra rate wouldn't be charged if you were doing something like that on the site to make it, and then council would help pay through those who aren't doing the improvements.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the intent.
So that's the intent. Does that make sense? So the city would look better.
I think you're going about it the wrong way. You're using a stick. You're using a stick rather than a carrot. You need to, you've got a lot of people in the council. You could actually set up a little department to get some of the people off doing other work, and actually set up a little department where they could actually focus and go and walk around and talk to people.
Dean, they are doing that. That's my point. They are actually.
So we've got the carrot. Yeah.
We've got a whole stack of property owners who have agreed to do it.
Yeah. So that's the carrot.
There's a reality. If your household doesn't have enough money coming in, you take it down to household level. If your household doesn't have enough money coming in, then you're selling assets off to actually pay for groceries and other things. The reality is, there's a reality to this. The council needs to cut its cloth. We need to cut our cloth. We're in a very, very, very crazy time. The council are wasting money. No disrespect. I like cycles. My boys ride into it. But the fact is, we're spending hundreds of millions
Dean,
on cycles.
I'm sorry. I've let you go over because I've jumped into a conversation because I
knew you'd stop me at that one.
Well, let's you and I continue this conversation offline. But as far as the annual plan goes, the submission on the rates one, you've made your submission, and we will certainly take that into account. So thank you very much for presenting today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right. So the next one is 91 Victoria Limited, Jamie